So I read this book and I'm really fascinated by it, recommend my oldest son. And I say, I wonder if our guest books from the early 20th century have any celebrity signatures in them. Let's pull them. So I pull our museum register. I'm like, I have a little project for you. It's a pet project. Get one of our younger employees and see if anybody has Hollywood by their name. Google them, see if we can find them. We find Al Capone's signature.
Wow.
We find the voice of the Blue Fairy in Pinocchio.
Wow.
We find the founder of the Salvation Army. We find the Titanic, one of the Titanic survivors. We've Richard Nixon, David Eisenhower. We find all these names.
Shade isn't a place you hide. It's where you pause, where you think, where real work happens. Quietly, creatively, and authentically. No slides, no filters. Just candid conversation about a story worth telling. It's not about villains. This is where brand builders, creatives, and storytellers come to share the stories they usually don't tell in pitch decks or press releases. It's about the people who work behind the scenes, challenge the obvious, bend the rules, or build unforgettable brands. This is
Shady Characters.
Today we've got, on Shady Characters, we've got Mechelle Lawrence-Adams. She's the executive director of the mission here in San Juan Capistrano, but before that has worked in city government here in San Juan for a long time, and I think has had the honor now of over 20 years as the executive director at the mission, if I'm not mistaken. So at this point, your thumbprint is really kind of etched in the history of that space.
Were you like 14 years old when you got that job?
But the preservation of that space has changed a lot under your guidance, I believe. And I'd love to dive a little deeper and understand why that space is so special to you, having lived in this area for so long, and how you kind of found a passion for preserving old things, because I think we share this affinity for recognizing the beauty in the history and kind of saving those things and why they're so important. So thank you for joining.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Do you know when you first remember the mission?
I was 10 years old. I have two cool memories. One was my mother, who was a single mom, took the day off to work the field trip experience.
Yep.
And so my whole entire childhood, she really didn't have time to volunteer. It was a big deal to have mom miss work and to come. She worked the graveyard shift at Denny's, and she took time off to do a field trip. And so that was like, oh, it's a very special moment to have my mom be with me and to explore this kind of smelly, old, dusty place. I didn't really understand Catholicism. I didn't even really understand the history, but I knew it was cool. I knew I liked it. My second is, after that experience, any guy I dated, I required them to go to the mission with me. One, it was cheap. It was like $3 to get in. And I could understand whether we would connect, because I had a vintage car. You know, I wore vintage clothes. And
Gotcha.
so, you know, if you didn't think the mission was cool, even though I wasn't a religious person at that time, I probably wasn't going to hit it off with you.
So you wouldn't tell them before you went what you were expecting out of the experience, but you would bring them there and just see how they assimilated to that environment and whether or not they were fascinated by it like you presumably were, or if they were like, oh, this is dungy and old, let's go to Newport where everything's new.
I also felt that the mission had a little of an intimidating presence. It felt very male and dark and old and worn down.
Yeah.
And it was intriguing to me, like, was there a softer side of it? And so while I wasn't someone who was on the corner, you know, pitching the mission my whole life or anything like that, my other part of my life of being in city government and accidentally stumbling into economic development through preservation, understanding that there's money to be made by taking something that's special and making it accessible and re-enlivening it. There's an economic benefit to a community and also an intrinsic value that you can't measure.
Sure.
So people say, oh, we love San Juan Capistrano, but let me change it. You know, I say, no, the reason why you came here is there's something that's intangible. How do we not preserve it necessarily, but how do we get our arms around it, put it in its best light?
Yeah.
So sometimes that does mean a conservation treatment. Sometimes it means a programming treatment. Sometimes it means change. But together, the whole idea is to retain and respect kind of its history and where it comes from.
I mean, the mission has that old town charm. I mean, that's what gives when you ask about San Juan, that's the first thing people gravitate towards.
I think, you know, it's interesting to me, there's like debates about things related to the mission, but all I have to do is stand at the door and watch children walk through.
Yeah.
And I do this regularly, so does my team, and I count the number of ahs and the lost breaths.
When they first enter. Yeah.
and is this real? Is this heaven? I've had children ask me, is this heaven? And I think,
Pretty close.
when you are a poor child, or you don't have access to museums or beauty, or you don't travel the world, your world is very defined by your home and maybe your school, and maybe a third place could be a park or a church, but there's not a whole lot of things that are really defining your worldview. So when you come to the mission and you step out of your poverty or step out of that box that you're in, it gives you the idea that something better is out there. And I know for myself, that was my experience, that there's beauty that can be there. So I always tell my team, we are artists and we're painting a picture. And what picture are we painting today? Are we painting a picture of, oh, we're bummed out, we're stressed out, there's too many kids, not enough paper towels in the paper towel dispenser? Or are we painting a picture of hope and that there's a sense of peace, even though it's a lot of work to make the peace? It's a lot of puppet strings behind the scenes to make it feel that way. I really think that if we look at our lives in the jobs that we have as artists, it's a lot more rewarding and a lot more impactful for the other people.
You're educators too. I think
Oh.
more than anything. I have a friend. His name's Darius Arya, and he is an American archaeologist. He's based in Rome, and he has dedicated he's been there over 20 years. Dedicated his life to educating on the history of ancient Rome. He came out here. He was doing some work at the Getty, and he came down to visit Stephanie and I here, and we took him to the mission. And it was so cool for me to be able to return. He's taken me around Rome and showed me everything. It was so cool for me to be like, by the way, this is in my backyard. Now you can come over and check it out. He thought it was the coolest thing that it was still there and how well everything was preserved. I think there's actually like a dig site that you guys have on the property, or it was back then. This was a couple of years ago, but it was like covered in plexiglass that, I don't know. It's just such a cool experience for him to come to America and see stuff like that too.
I had my new son-in-law come. He was raised in Kansas, and he had never been to California before. And we showed him the mission, and he's a technical director in the opera world. And he was blown away by the construction of the site. I think that the sheer magnitude of the past, of how did we build this, how do we use it, what are the stories that it had? The ruins were a worshiping place, a church, and today they're a place of inspiration for people to remember tragedy, but also to look at the lens of history through a new way, through architecture. So no wonder he and I would probably be great friends.
100%.
Yeah.
How big is the mission grounds currently?
We like to say it's 10 acres.
Okay.
That includes the school and the parish.
Yep.
But what I have learned in any small town, and I lived in Santa Ana and Seal Beach and San Juan, the more you know it, the smaller it gets.
Yeah.
And so when a guest crosses that threshold, that aha moment is, wow, it's so big.
Yep.
But as they become more intimate with the site and more familiar, like a member, they're like, oh, I wish there was more to this too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is really cool. Too bad we don't have another 4 acres.
You get to know every corner
Yeah.
of it, right?
I will say so. Being I'm a member, right? And I
know
come
you
with
are.
I come with my kids, and while I feel like I know it well, I walk away each time feeling like I discovered something new about it. And I'll give you an example. So recently, and I wish I could remember her name, I was walking through with my girls, and because they like to do your scavenger hunt. And your scavenger hunt is super fun. And even now, they kind of know there's a couple tricky ones. The cowhide, that one's tricky. And there's one other one that they were having trouble finding, and now they know where to go, obviously. But we're walking through, we're doing that, and one of your docents grabbed us and said, "Hey, come in here." And I had never put together that there was a mirror underneath a shelf in an enclosed thing, and it showed how they had
Cannonball.
repurposed the wood to make this cabinet from an old ship, and the underside of the shelf was actually had concave, and when it was on a ship, it was turned upright, and that's what held the cannonballs. And they had used that.
I put that mirror in.
I was like, this
in
is so
2004.
cool.
And that's so you
Yeah.
can actually
When we
get
had
a
no
point- a
money.
perspective on it.
Yeah. But I was like, now you can, and I had never spent time in that room to find that myself, and I was so appreciative.
Is that part of the scavenger hunt?
That one's not on the scavenger hunt. Yeah, that would be hard to
maybe
find.
next week.
Yeah. But anyways, I think it sounds like it takes about 50 people to run the mission. There is an incredible staff at the mission, and I think that is most of them that I talk to have been there a pretty long time, and I think that's probably probably due in large part to the leadership that you've brought into that space. Would you agree?
Well, I would first say, you always want to project positivity with high expectations.
Yep.
So even though you want to be a really positive leader and loving and kind, you have to have expectations that are also pretty clearly articulated. And so I'm looking for action-oriented people. Just like Jesus looks at the disciples who is action-oriented for him, I'm looking at who are my people that are going to work for me or with me, alongside me, that are not just going to be words. And so I really filter strongly. We have a good process. We have 4 main values that we live by. I call them our 4 keys or our 4 pillars. And stewardship, excellence in guest experience, excellence in safety, and excellence in service. And those 4 values aren't just about the public, but to each other. And I do call people on the carpet anytime I think that those things have been breached. We will have a moment in my office where I say, put the fireplace on, talk to me why you and you aren't getting along.
Yeah.
Guess what you're going to go do? You're going to go to lunch together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see you after lunch. You have 10 days to get lunch under your belt and come back and tell me.
It's much better than putting them in a boxing ring.
Right. But like, so I kind of like, we have a conflict. I love both you guys. You're amazing to me. I don't understand why you're not getting along. I think you're too much alike, and you need to go out to lunch and figure out why you're so alike, because you're going to like each other. So I do think like I'm pretty prescriptive. I'm pretty hard on myself. And I do think that those 4 values are also in a sense of serving excellence and inspiration, education, preservation, and now in this 250th year, celebration. So if we can all as a company focus on what we really stand for. And I've worked for institutions and in my career where I wasn't really clear what was important. And so when you're trying to enact your programs and you're like, well, do we value a quick, efficient service, or do we get rewards for slowing things down? I think for my team, they know exactly where I stand on things. And because they know that they're safer and they can perform. And as many of the employees that I have, I hired them straight out of high school, here local. They're lifelong residents of San Juan. My executive assistant has been with me for over 20 years. And I moved her from the front line to work for me directly because I personally believe everybody can have success. And it's not just about me. So she's like family to me. They're all like family to me in most regards.
They'll probably take that. And I've had a couple bosses like that kind of took me under their wing and were great mentors. And I still keep in touch with them regularly. But there's people that have made an impact in my life, which I imagine you're doing that for them too.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, I believe in the power of a personal letter, one-on-one reviews. One of the things that we live by in the organization is if I see something that someone needs to grow on, we will talk about it. And then when we do the annual review, if they've addressed it, I don't need to talk about it in the review. It's done. Like, you don't hold a grudge, right?
Right.
But I think people need to know what the goals are. Football players know what the goal is. Certain jobs, I'm a sign maker. I'm supposed to put a sign up, right? But when you're a nonprofit, sometimes the goals can get muddied. Who are your stakeholders? And are our stakeholders every person that walks across that threshold, whether they're Catholic or not? Yes. Are stakeholders children? Yes. Are stakeholders people with cancer? Yes. Are our stakeholders our critics? I think we need to pay attention to our critics and understand it, and don't put our head in the sand and go, well, everything's just nirvana here. Maybe pay attention to the criticism. Don't let it get you off your mark.
Use it as a learning point.
Yeah,
I mean,
and also
maybe
like
they're saying something that
better, make
right.
yourself stronger. because
Maybe
of
they're
it.
saying things that make sense that help you improve the experience or what you're doing there as well, right?
My mom said to me at a very young age to do all things in love.
Yeah.
And whether you have money or not, it costs nothing to be early or on time. It costs nothing to be clean and to have a good attitude. Those are
like it
kind of
costs nothing
lessons.
to be nice, right?
And so those things are kind of important to me.
Yeah.
And if you can do all things in love, and love is not mean permissiveness and enabling stuff,
Right.
but if truly, and I do love the mission, I love San Juan, it means so much to me, and it's such a privilege and an honor to be there. But I also think like my staff has to know that their person they're counting on to protect them is as committed to their well-being, not just the missions.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't hear that enough from our leaders. The people at the top get all the glory. I try to give the glory to my team, and I'll take the criticism. And still the glory still comes to me, but it shouldn't, because there's a foundation, there's volunteers, there's a priest, there's a lot of other people that make it special.
Yeah.
So explain, I guess so. The mission being a nonprofit, explain how that works, right? Because you're a nonprofit, you've got a board, you've got key stakeholders in this, right? So explain how the mission operates in that way.
Well, it's really interesting because most nonprofits just have one 501c3 number. We have 2. We're part of the diocese. The site is owned by the Orange County Diocese, which is like the county of churches. And so we have that. So I actually report to the bishop. But then about 30 years ago, then Bishop set up a separate nonprofit for fundraising for the mission called the Mission Preservation Foundation. and he identified stakeholders in the community and invited them to participate on the board. That board was established only for the care and conservation of the Great Stone Church ruins, which were going to fall over and kill people.
Yep.
And there was no other kind of stewardship plan for the site. I went my merry way, put 16 years in government. I heard that the executive director was leaving, and I was like, well, how does that all work? I said to my mother, there's nobody who's going to be the executive director of the mission. I wonder what they're going to do. And she said, well, you should apply for the job. I said, oh, they'll never hire me. I'm a woman. I'm not Catholic. No, but we should try to find someone. And she goes, no, I really think you should apply. So I accidentally, every day for like 30 days, ran into the priest that had coffee at Starbucks at the exact same time.
What a coincidence.
And put my name in the hat of a bunch of people and went and got an interview. And when I showed up, the priest, who is now my dear friend and married me and baptized my 14-year-old son, said, oh, Mechelle, good to see you here. And so, I was the stalker at Starbucks, then Diedrich's. And I realized that one of the challenges was that the foundation identity needed to expand beyond that single focus project, which is just fundraising for one project. And who cares? Not everybody can buy into one project.
Right.
And it was missing an opportunity. So the founding chair, Tony Moiso, and the other board members were really welcoming and supportive. And they took a risk with me. They were wondering, how am I going to do this job as a mother? I think they were excited about the prospect of enacting a strategic plan. I had designed a 5-year strategic plan for them that I pitched them on the interview. And they also wanted to shift the gaze of the mission from this burdensome project that didn't relate to everybody to maybe a broader proposal that everybody could kind of benefit from. So we enacted this 5-year strategy. We got it done. We did another 5-year, and now we kind of have like a long-term plan of what is important. So anything from what is our preservation strategy and focus, what is our marketing, what is our volunteer strategy, our IT strategy, our community relations strategy. There's all those things. But it was building up that board, and on them at the same time fed me and built me up too by having faith in me, because I had never been an executive director before.
I was just going to ask,
scary.
did you have experience in that, or where did you learn that skill set? Is that something you instinctually just had gut feelings on where to go and what needed to be done?
I thought I wanted to be a city manager. That was the track that I was going down, or first a community development director. And that was my hope. And I was going through those processes, and I had finished my master's degree. But I had accidentally asked for money from people in a variety of projects related to the city of San Juan, and they gave it to me. And so I instinctively had the ability to raise money, and get people on board. And
this is why we love our show, because when fire engines come by and paramedics, it's real.
It's real. It's authentic.
Happens in real time.
San Juan, the miracle backdrop, right?
Yeah.
We are in the thick
the
of
musical. And so before I took the job, I immersed myself on online studies of how to be an executive director and talked to a whole bunch of executive directors. And it wasn't much different than being a city manager. We had security issues, we had IT issues, we had maintenance and facilities, project management, construction, city government related issues. So it was actually very on par with, at least for this site. If I was working necessarily for a nonprofit that produced books, it would not be the same thing. But because I have a plan,
you've got a physical thing that you protect,
and something that means something, and a responsibility.
That's something you're passionate about too,
just
right?
like a city, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it really worked out really well. Our own little city in there. Although our city is really fun because people don't show up and yell at us about stop signs. They just drink red wine at our parties, and they're really happy to be there. So it was a good career choice.
That's interesting. I haven't heard about it described as there's a lot of similarities between what a small city operates like and what this is, because by and large that is the birthplace of our town for sure, and kind of the birthplace of Orange County, right? And it's celebrating 250 years this year in conjunction with the nation turning 250. It's a pretty monumental thing,
We're the only mission of the 21 that has this birth year.
Yep.
And I think it's really cool. So I'm an 18th century junkie. I love Ron Chernow, the author who wrote Hamilton biography that became the musical, and he won the Pulitzer Prize winning George Washington biography and the Ulysses Grant biography. He's fantastic. So I love 18th century, just questioning it and thinking about it. And at the same time, I welcome the criticism that comes to the mission from today's lens of, this isn't right, that people didn't have the same standing. I'm like, well, get over it. Nobody had any standing in 250 years ago. And yet we love our country, and we're grateful for the means in which we are today, right? And so, when you think of 250 years, you think of 25 decades, and you think of the Civil War, and you think of the Vietnam War, and the Holocaust, and World War I, and the advent of rock and roll and Elvis Presley. The mission has been through all of that.
Yeah.
And people have been walking those grounds while all of that pop culture, the Beatles arriving to America every day. And I really see that in our guest books. So I read this book by Sue Orlean, who wrote about the library, the Los Angeles Library fire and fundraising. And it's kind of this amazing story about the evolution of libraries in California. Mm-hmm. First libraries are missions because the learned people were priests. So they collected books. If you're not reading, you don't have a book, you're not collecting them, right? So the original books are missions. Then the first library cards have all the celebrity signatures because celebrities in LA would go, Frank Capra write their screenplay, or Ray Bradbury write his books in the library. So the Charles Loomis, who was this amazing character who helped to save the California missions in the early 20th century, was one of the first librarians for the city of LA. And he started the library card process. And he would put in notes of, you shouldn't read this book, it's corrupting your morals. He would literally give people opinions when they checked out a book. Yeah. And librarians had been female mostly, but he was a male. And so he ended up being the founder of Sunset Magazine, which showcased the Landmarks Club and the California missions. Okay, so I read this book and I'm really fascinated by it, recommend my oldest son. And I say, I wonder if our guest books from the early 20th century have any celebrity signatures in them. Let's pull them. So I pull our museum register. I'm like, I have a little project for you. It's a pet project. Get one of our younger employees and see if anybody has Hollywood by their name. Google them. See if we can find them. We find Al Capone's signature. Wow. We find the voice of the Blue Fairy in Pinocchio. Wow. We find the founder of the Salvation Army. We find the Titanic, one of the Titanic survivors. We've Richard Nixon, David Eisenhower, Julie Nixon Eisenhower. We find all these names. And that all became because I read this one book by Sue Orlean.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
The 20th century intersection is really fascinating because that's when the mission gets on the pop culture scene and part of our Americana culture. But we have this other thing, our founding period. And what does that mean to be an indigenous person? And what does a mission mean to you? And making sure we respect that too. So it's a lot of fun and it's a lot of going with your gut. Like, should you question this? Yeah. I say yes.
Absolutely. That's a really cool story. And it's fascinating how that came to be and who you found in there. I used to have a photo printed in my office of like a young Marilyn Monroe sitting on the fountain. And just because I thought it was so cool.
Is in the Historical Society records.
Awesome.
And before her nose job and before she was Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, she looks like she's 15 or something. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, very cool. So on Shady Characters, obviously you are well versed with us here at Thatch Creative, but we're a marketing agency, a creative agency. So oftentimes we'll see how your world intersects with that. And I think that there is, and you've kind of alluded to it already, but there's a lot of intersection because you, as the executive director of the mission, have had to not only preserve a historic place and do it in the right way, but you've got to be able to drive momentum towards people wanting to come to your space. How do you gain interest? How do you get people to walk through the door? Those sorts of things. What have been some experiences of yours that you found or you have discovered have been really instrumental in helping bring revenue share success to the mission as well?
Oh, that's such a great question. Well, first of all, revenue has to be diversified.
Yep.
You can't have one source. We learned that all in COVID, right?
Yep.
And you don't want to build everything on the backs of large groups. You want to have a lot of variety. One of the things I think that is very clear to me is the future, and children are our future. Mm-hmm. So education, a clear commitment to enacting the social studies
I hear
standards.
we are the world queuing up.
Yep, we are the world.
The children are our future.
Which surprisingly was actually recorded at the mission.
At the mission. Was it really?
Oh, gosh. But I'm going to sound like I'm an evangelical, but I'm an evangelical for education. So I think every child that has the chance to cross the threshold and see the beauty and draw their own conclusions from the site and be presented with curriculum that they're mandated by the state to learn, but learn it in a way that's engaging and in their own autonomy and in their own different ways of learning, is a way of saving a soul. Because a kid leaves that day and goes home to dinner and says, I got to go to the mission today, and they tell their parents or their guardians or keepers what that day looked like, and they remember it forever. There are very few people that I ever talk to that don't remember their field trip to the California missions, right? So education, the Remember the Builders program, which we got trademarked 2 years ago, and our If These Walls Could Talk audio tour has been instrumental in correcting the narrative out there and having inclusive education language where we have the voice of the indigenous people and we have the voice of the pastors. And it's not an either or proposition that history is bad, so we're only going to tell this one thing. But I think that's been critical. I think the other is
Now available in Mandarin, I hear.
it is. And
Wow.
guess what? We have
Yeah.
14 to 20 people a day taking Mandarin.
Crazy.
I am.
Wow.
It's only been
Oh,
2
so you can
weeks.
actually you can see
track
the
it.
metrics on. Yeah.
I am in shock.
Yeah, that's
of
cool.
how many Mandarin people we have coming.
Yeah.
And we think we're going to get more because tour groups are starting to call.
Yep.
So that's been interesting. I think the audio tour so I've traveled the world. My husband and I love to travel, and I've probably taken a couple hundred audio tours myself. Many of them are not good. Many of them are good. What makes them good is if you don't say, this is a pencil, and the pencil is yellow, boring. But if you can use voices and music and a little bit of sound effects and make people feel something.
Create a story around it too, instead of practically saying what it is.
Well, and that's where we're
build
aligned.
what it
Yeah.
felt like.
Storytellers,
Build
right?
what it felt like to be there.
So you guys are storytellers, and you know it's a lot more fun. So the audio tour, delving into that world, I think I'm on my 8th audio tour production, and I have a writer that I work with. She's now a dear friend, and we had a lot of fun birthing the kids' audio tour because we made it fun, and we got kids to listen to it and give us advice. Like, go to the people that use your product and ask them if they have any input before you just tell them what they shall know. So I think really in understanding children and learners and understanding that kids can be dyslexic, they could have ADHD, they could be really a quiet kid, giving them some way that they can engage the information in their own fashion and not having to ignore kids. So we're very inclusive on our education tactic. I think the other is quality programming. I no longer just put on art shows and events for the heck of it. It kills our staff. It takes away from the focus of the beauty of the site. So you come in and you think you're going to see the mission, and you have a corporate event set up day after day, week after week. That's exhausting and fatiguing. You're not going to come back. So we're very limited on how many times we allow things to take us off our message, which is why we closed on Mondays. That's the other thing, is aligning our resource of time and access to when people want it. So it doesn't make sense for me to be open on Mondays, and that might not sound like a really brilliant decision, but it allows me to do a lot of work on site and to take deliveries and not cause problems with the downtown and being a good neighbor. So I think quality programming, I do think that we really lean into our Instagram and our visual better. We have to, because that's something that we can sell and we can share. People are so visual nowadays that they need to see the reels or they need to see the picture, the beauty. It's not enough, to say they had the experience just to see it, but it can pique their interest. So
Even the cannonball thing that you guys were talking about, like something like that, give people Easter eggs that they can go try and find while they're there.
And I think, making history fun.
It's the story about it, right?
Staff's key. I always tell the
Yeah.
staff they're way more important than I am on guest engagement. Guest doesn't talk to me every day.
Yeah.
They talk to them. And so having a really good team to be on the front line and to understand. I had a baby fly out of the air, and I became a mother overnight unexpectedly. And I had to do a groundbreaking event the day that my little son was born, and I had to do the event and I had to go pick him up. And so I called the staff on my way in to give you an example, and I said, guys, I will be there, but I got to leave. You have to be me. What would I do? I'm going to show up, and it's up to you. So I showed up at like 10 o'clock for the groundbreaking. It was perfect. It was beautiful. All these dignitaries came, and at the end I said, okay, I'm off to go pick up my son. I'll be back on like Monday, and I'll bring him with me.
Wow.
And I think like having a team that knows that they have the power to know what's right to do and to create that programming, whether or not you're there.
And the ability to do it. Like, I think giving people the freedom to not have to come to you every time. It's, can I do this? Can I do this? Like, you obviously have respect for them that they're going to make the right decision too.
I also think relationships are super important. In an old place like this, it could be stones and bones and buildings, and people could be really bored by it. I had a babysitter who didn't have a lot of money, but she had a very white couch, and so she had it covered in plastic. And I sat on her couch for 3 years, and we never touched the fabric. It was always something to protect it. And I think of historic preservation as sometimes they're very much academic, and they're not practitioners. And they're like, oh, we're going to preserve it, but you can't go enjoy it. Yeah. Or, oh, we're going to save it and put it on a shelf, and we're only going to use our china at Thanksgiving or Easter. Yeah. And my mindset is we use china every day. You know, we use the site every day. We protect it through our best management practices and through the kinds of things we'll allow to have happen at it. But let's not have the mindset that it's a bubble. I don't think that's healthy for the site itself. And I think the mission has suffered that in the past before I got there. And I'm a Catholic, but it's too Catholic. Well, it is Catholic, but it also is a lot of other things too. Yeah. And you could say, well, it's too education. It's also artistic. We have painters. So not getting so caught up that it's in a bubble and it's only for one kind of person. I think you got to be really careful about that.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to give a quick shout out, and I know I've shouted him out to you before, but you talked a little bit about your staff, and you've got you've got a lot of amazing people there. But there's one that always he every single time I go, he stands out, and my kids ask for him now, and it's Jacques.
Oh,
and I want to give shout out Jacques. Jacques is just so easy to talk to, and he's so informative and so kind and friendly. And I think that again is just a testament to like the amazing staff that you curated there, right?
How we found Jacques. So I'm not above begging people to come to work for me. I usually carry my card around. If I'm at Starbucks and I meet someone, I'll be like, how are they paying you
Evan,
here?
she gave me her card once. I don't know if you know.
But I literally was like, are you happy
working the
here?
front desk now. I know.
Are you happy here working at Taco Bell because you're really good?
Yeah.
Let's talk.
So, I mean, because they'll say what they pay, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they should come work at the Mission. They'll have so much more fun.
Yeah.
And so Jacques was on contract security, middle of the night watchman. And he worked for us for 3 years. And he was always like you described him. And I would ask my team, guys, do we think Jacques would come work for us? Oh, no, he likes his job. Has anyone asked him? No, he likes his job. I said, I don't believe it. So I went to him. I went to my HR manager. I said, I need to put an offer letter together right now. I'm going to go offer this guy a job. We are? Yes, he should be working for us. We're paying this company that's taking half his salary. You know, they're charging us X number of dollars, and he's not even getting this money. And we could save money, and he could have a better life. And so what's the job description? Security guard. All right, write it up. All right, put it on the logo. I run out there. I'm like, dude, I have a letter I need you to go home and read with your family and come back to me after 72 hours. And he's like, what is it? I said, just read it. I think you're fantastic.
Don't worry, it's not a subpoena.
And so, no. So, you know, I'm not trying to break any confidences here, but I will say he came back to me with tears in his eyes because of his life story and where he's been. I don't think he had gotten a break. He was working a really hard job, really hard times in a place that nobody knew who he was because he'd show up on behalf of the company by himself.
Yeah.
And here we have this really cool team that does pizza and loves each other, and he's kind of on the outs, but we still liked him, so we tried to bring him in. And so he said, Mechelle, I'll take the job. And since then, he's been promoted. And I told him, you know, I might be selling a jelly cat stuffed animal that looks like you. We might need to get a Jacques doll made with the dreads and the little tats.
I know.
But no, I have to say, as much as he stands out, most of our staff is
you've got that story
like
for all of them. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, Jacques sneaks my kids extra koi fish food,
Yes, he does.
and he has won them over.
Well, but you know what? He gets it, and they're really good. So I probably work every day with the team. When I'm not there, they still text me, and they'll say, oh, do you know this person? They just name dropped you. Are we supposed to do anything? And Jacques will text me and say, hey, I just took care of this. I want to make sure you know, which helps me the next time I see somebody.
He says, I gave Evan Berger's kids extra koi fish food. Please,
give him whatever.
Please be okay
and
with
some quarters for the penny machine. But look, he's great. All the staff is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I could tell you stories. On my way out, I left something on my desk. It was my lipstick. And I was like, dang it. And so I called Sonia. I said, willing to go to my bottom of my left-hand drawer. I hate to do this. She goes, of course I'll bring you your lipstick. I'm like, and I need my eye drops too. Like, you know,
it's a long walk though.
I know, but everybody's like so helpful and wants each other. Like when if one of us is hurting, all of us is hurting.
Yeah.
If one of us has a success, we all have a success. So we have a tradition of 0s and 5s. We celebrate birthdays. We have a social committee that actually gets a little bonus at the end of the year, because most women do all the social stuff in an organization and they don't get compensated for it. And so female labor, to me, it's very important to me that we recognize that, because the guys are walking and going, dude, there's a party, where's the cake?
Yeah.
And it's fine, I love the guys.
Which is why we have a Tina.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have a little social committee. So they do these crazy parties. They get on AI and they'll be like, what can we do for someone's 40th birthday? And it'll be like, you know, a frog theme or a spa day theme. And it's low budget. It's everybody bringing stuff in from home. So we try to keep the morale really high, and then we also celebrate any huge milestone. How someone has a kid or graduates, that's really important to me because we spend so much time at work. Even if I didn't want to get to know people, I'm going to get to know them, right? Yeah. So we might as well embrace that we are like a work family.
Yep.
And there are moments where we're going to get on each other's toes and we're going to have to work it out.
You probably spend more time with them than your real family.
No. No, but yeah, it's pretty.
Maybe in the past.
I bring my family to work, but no, it's a challenge, to keep. How do you have that intimacy with your team and not blow it too? You can get cross that line too much, and then you don't have productivity. So it's finding that balance, right? But it's joy.
I think something, Tim, that I was hoping to get to in this is that while the culture around the mission for you is so strong, I think the thing that I hear is stronger is still the family, right? It's the family culture is still the top of the pyramid here. And I think that a lot of people probably don't know that about you and know what you do outside the mission because you do such a good job of being such a great advocate for the mission, and everyone associates you with that because of the amazing work that you're doing. But let's dive in and learn a little bit about Mechelle outside of the mission, because I think that there are some equally awesome stories there. And I think that you're an avid outdoorsman, if I'm not mistaken. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what type of stuff you like to do?
Well, thanks. I usually try to keep really private and not tell anybody anything.
We don't have to tell you.
No.
We're going to cut the cameras.
It's the first time anyone's ever asked, So
watching.
I've learned that if you don't volunteer information of yourself, people usually don't ask.
Yeah.
So I can learn a lot more about other people than they ever learn about me.
Sure.
It's like on the spot. My husband and I'm not a good golfer, but I golf, I paddleboard, I walk every day in a historic downtown. I'm an avid skier. I'm a black diamond skier.
Yeah.
With my son, who forces me to stretch myself, which is a lot of fun. I'm a big reader, and I'm very close to all three of my kids. My older son is a cine buff, and we go to old movies in LA. Every couple months, I go up, and we do cool historic places or cool historic restaurants, and he and I go to New Beverly. So we have our relationship. He's a city planner for the city of LA
cool.
and a docent for the LA Conservancy, and he's writing a book. He has gotten an option and a contract with his girlfriend, and they're writing on cool historic places in Palm Springs, and it's a legit book deal out of New York. And so I'm very proud of him. So he and I are movie buffs together, and we're going to see Dr. Strangelove this week in LA.
Cool. Yeah.
And then my daughter was a costumer, and now she works in Opera House as a digital marketing manager for the Glimmerglass Festival in upstate New York. And she is a rock climber and a hiker and was an equestrian for 12 years here, owned a horse. So I took up horseback riding when she was a horse, so I could appreciate that. And unfortunately, she lives far away, but we talk on text frequently. Yeah. And then my little son is my performer and my water bug, and he's a junior lifeguard. He's my 14-year-old son, who is a tap dancer, swim team, singer, vocalist, and an outdoors guy, too. So I boogie board with him in the summer. See, the good thing about living 40 miles away from the mission is nobody's ever going to see me in a bathing suit. And so I am the oldest mom on the beach with not a stitch of makeup and like a Gidget
and
style
no
bathing
cares
suit.
to give
and
out.
I really
Anyway,
don't care.
Yeah.
And so we boogie board voraciously by the pier and have a lot of fun. And so for me, it's all about the water and being outside. It's really important to me to be out, which is one of the reasons I love the mission, is I don't have to work a corporate job. I am outside every day with kids and the plants and the monarchs. Yeah. It's heaven. Yeah. It's great. It's a lot of work, but it's heaven. Right?
And your husband is in a similar space, obviously not protecting an asset like the Mission San Juan, but he's at the Discovery Cube, right? And does he run the Discovery Cube? Is that his deal?
He's the CEO of the Discovery Cube, Santa Ana and Los Angeles.
Cool.
It's a $20 million mission or a museum, and he has, I think, 300 employees. It's big, and they are doing an amazing job in STEM and impact of life, how we live, environmental, teaching kids with the curriculum of the California State Curriculum Standards for science, next generation science standards. He and I are very much aligned and are very best friends. We talk work every day. We have a coffee meeting every day at 5 in our living room where we talk about, okay, how's membership going and what's happening here. We've both been impacted by things in the environment, the politics and the world outside the doors, where we say, hey, are you seeing this trend? Yeah, I'm seeing this trend. We both started our autism awareness kind of education differentiation and opportunity programs because of conversations in our coffee in the morning. It's like, hey, are you doing it for our autistic kids? We really should be doing that. What are we going to do about that? So he has a much bigger job than I do, and he was an Imagineer for Disney. And so he's on a different level. I really like a more smaller level. I like being in the nooks and crannies with my team, and he has teams of teams and does.
He's
an
more
amazing
high
job.
level strategic
Yeah.
oversight, making sure all cylinders are firing.
Yeah, his exhibits are $4 million exhibits.
Yeah.
I mean, he's buying a lot across the street for $15 million through the city of Santa Ana to build a parking structure kind of thing. He works with government levels of government that I know. He's in Sacramento all the time. But he's also a designer and an exhibit designer, and that's a lot of fun. So we're both very creative. Our house is the one that people walk by has the most decorations. But that's him. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
He's like a big kid.
As a former Disney Imagineer, I got to imagine that your decorations are next level.
It's him.
Yeah.
Right? Totally him. I do all the inside stuff, but his philosophy is that he wants God to see us. And so we are the ones that get notes on our house from neighbors and say, oh, I like your decorations. And then or knocks on the door and we give out tickets to the mission or the Q.
Yeah.
And we say, we happen to work at museums. You want some tickets?
Yeah.
We really do feel united. I know it sounds really hokey, and I hope you don't think I'm a Pollyanna, but like we just love the opportunity to do our jobs that we get to do with the people we get to do them. And we worked hard in other careers, so it's kind of interesting to have a second life in a different career, but that first career prepared you for that too.
And they're dramatic departures from each other.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's all about people, right? At the end of the day, and saving the world in a special way. When I'm trying to do it spiritually and, artistically and through music and food and people coming together, he's doing it through science and teaching kids about, source separation of trash and making it a carnival game. There's like a fun game of the trash recycling and shopping in the grocery store, some skill sets, and how do you do that and make good environmental choices when you shop. So many cool things that he gets to do that I don't get to touch upon, but I can be a part of it as a supporting wife.
Yeah.
So
Well, for him, both you guys, it's kind of a refreshing take that if you want to change it up, it's never too late. Like it's never too late to try something different and still be successful.
I think the power of yes has to be, well, for both of us, it's a very important value that we hold. Every time we've said yes, it's been difficult and it's opened up doors.
Yeah.
Do you want to adopt a child today? Yes. Okay. Is it a boy or a girl? Do you want to move today? Sell your house? I think we should. Do you want to change your life? Yeah. And I think for our older kids, it's empowered them to go seek their purpose. And I don't mean to sound too corny, but it's hard to raise kids in this world sometimes when the screens are so predominant as tools and resources, but also as distractions.
Especially where we live. It's everywhere.
But
And I feel
giving
like
that role model.
both the husband and the wife are working these days because it isn't cheap to live where we live. So it's fun. It's tough to find time to really pay attention and spend quality time with your kids. Yeah.
I think what I try to calculate how many hours a day I spend with my kid versus working and how I can make that work. And I think a lot of people don't go into the parenting process or the work process thinking about it till it happens, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, darn, what are we doing now? How are we going to make this happen? But, time is the one thing we can't get back. It's the most precious resource we have. And I think if we work as a couple, like Joe and I are very committed. And unfortunately, now we're old. So when you get older, you have more flexibility that you didn't have in your 30s.
Me too. Me too.
Well, you guys run your own business, but like when
Oh, no,
I
I'm
worked
saying
at the
I'm
city, you are not old. But when I first started and I was a mother to my 32-year-old, I couldn't get time off. I would have to lie about it on my absence request. I'd have to cover it up. I'd feel guilty, taking care of him for an ear infection. That's not the culture I run at the mission. You better darn well be at your kids' things. If I hear you didn't miss a soccer game, I'm going to be ticked. But you better also make sure that we perform.
But your job, it can't come at the sacrifice of your job, right?
Right. Your job's still got to give me the numbers, but you better try to make sure that you don't miss a thing either.
Yeah.
So I think that those are the ways we can change the world a little bit is through our own example. Us as leaders, when we get in position of leadership, to make sure that we explain some of the things we're doing so that other people can keep doing them too, if they agree.
You were telling me you have the travel bug before we started taping this stuff. It's ironic that you have this outlook before. I think I don't know how much you've traveled, but I feel like in my life I did everything backwards. So I traveled the world when I was younger because my dad was a pilot. So I didn't really I thought it was cool, but I really didn't appreciate it and absorb as much as I probably could have as an adult. And then I was fortunate. The first 10 years of my marketing career, I did international marketing. So I traveled all over the world for a decade. But what I realized is how much other parts of the world value family time and value the time outside of work to really get out and do activities and get outdoors and be something other than your job. And they actually make fun of Americans because they say we work ourselves to death and we're here working 10, 12-hour days. And it's like you put your head down at 20 years old and you pick your head up at 55 and it's like, where did life go? But it's like, it's so great that you like just now getting into it already have that mindset for your team to give them the opportunity to not be grinded for 12-hour days.
We have to put in 12, 14-hour days when the time comes, right?
Right, but it's not every day.
If I'm still doing that after 23 years at the mission, I'm not a very good executive director. I should be able to do payroll in 7 minutes.
You're also very tired.
I should be able to do certain things that a new person coming in, it might take them 2 hours because I know, after all, right? There's systems, and we should have systems in place that allow us to get our time back. I was not a big traveler younger. It's come later. But my husband and I have decided not to remodel our bathrooms and not to fix up our house and to spend money.
That's unfortunate because my wife is an interior designer and she could really
down the road
give you a great deal.
After I get my son to college. But we're like making a choice. And we're like, okay, our son is much younger than my other kids. And we're like, we only have these many summers left and this much time. How do we, so we plan it all out a year in advance, 2 years in advance in some cases. And we grab the time whenever we can. If you don't grab it, it's going to go. I look at my team like, how come you guys never take a vacation? You could take one. Oh, well, that's on you. I'm going to take mine because I'm going to take my phone with me and my iPad and my watch.
You can work from
I
think that's what COVID taught people too, is you don't have to sit at a desk to be productive, right?
Right. Kristen Boulder, our graphics designer, and I wrote a whole book in COVID from home, and we never saw each other the entire time we wrote it. We just did, we shared our prints, and I did the text, and she did all the graphic layout. Yeah. And I always think that was such a crazy time. We wrote this whole garden book. And I was
going to say, what's the book about? Yeah,
it was about the Mission Gardens.
Okay.
And I had a board member who was Joan Irvine Smith's daughter, and Joan Irvine Smith was like an heiress of Irvine, and she lived here in San Juan, and she was quite a character and quite an advocate for the environment, and she would have
she likes San Juan better than Irvine.
She loves San Juan, and she would have been at city council. She goes to meetings, but she passed away like in January of COVID year, and then my board member Madeline Martin Swindon, she passed away June 12th of 2020, and one of the things that she was her moniker, her symbol was pink. She always wore pink, and she loved pink roses. So we did a pink rose garden in honor of her by the ruins, and so much money came in with her passing because she was so beloved and cherished. I said, we can't just take this money. We need to do something with it. She loved the gardens. How about we write a book about the gardens? So that was June, and Kristen and I, we were getting back to the mission around that time, but we went back and closed again in December, and we wrote that book, and we got it published within a year in between everything else. The whole world was falling apart. Yeah. But I felt the obligation to put Madeline's life, something that she really valued, that she could fund the donations that stand for her life. Yeah. So that does happen a lot at the mission that I didn't expect, is where grief and love and hope intersect. I think as a former city planner, I worked in a very secular mindset, and we didn't even say God before the Pledge of Allegiance practically. Like, all right, that's enough God. We said the pledge. And working in a place where we're probably on the outset, where I used to think is only Catholic people went there, but being there now for 23 years, I have met people that have come there the day that their husband has died or their wife has died. This is the place they decided to go, and I've stumbled upon them. I have been there with 2-year-olds with brain cancer, where the mother has shown up with her husband crying, knocking on the door, trying to get in. The mission means something for people that are not necessarily of the Catholic faith tradition and of the Catholic faith tradition, that they feel the need to be there. I get texts and emails from strangers all the time about deeply personal things. And I tell my husband, I didn't know as a nonprofit director that I somehow would engage in people's lives. Friday, I'm going to a retirement community because a docent has reached out to me. Her husband is in dementia care facility, and she just really wants me to hold his hand and visit with him. And I'm going to do that because they gave a lot to the mission when he was fully of his old self. I think that that's what we have to also appreciate, that nonprofits do have the power to connect with people in deeply personal, meaningful ways. It's not just transactional, it can be transformational. And I don't think as a community we spend enough time appreciating the transformational value. And when we do that, there's a depth there, there's a future that's really positive.
That is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were getting into your role at the mission, it doesn't sound like that's not something that you anticipated, right?
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah.
I one day I was walking the grounds and I saw this man sitting on a bench crying, and he was like in his 70s, and I stopped. I said, "Sir, can I help you? Is everything okay?" And he said to me, he goes, "I'm sitting in the location where I went with my first date with my wife over 50 years ago, and she just died."
Wow.
And I held him, his head on my shoulder, and I said, "Well, let's go get a candle. Are you okay? We can do a prayer. I'll go get a candle. We'll go into Sarah Chapel. And by the way, I'm Mechelle, and I work here." And so we went in and we held hands. And I have done that. I did that with a 10-year-old boy last spring who told me his mother had breast cancer. And he said, "I don't really know what cancer is." He just volunteered it because I bring my dog to work. And I said, "Well, would you like to go in the chapel? Would it be okay with your teacher?" And so the adults in the setting said it was okay. And so I took the child, I was very careful to do everything right. And I said, "Well, do you know how to pray?" And he goes, "I've never prayed. I don't know what praying is." And I said, "Well, it's like making a wish on your heart. I said, look at the candles. That's like the internet to God. So we're just the candle, you're going to light it, and you just can send an email, and it's going to be prayer mail. Does that make sense to you?" And he's like, "Yeah, that makes sense." I said, "So let's go do that." And I had the teacher standing outside St. Peregrine, and he lit the candle. I actually got a picture, and then he gave me a little hug, which probably people would freak out over, but I had adults. And I walked him back to his teacher, and then the teacher was crying, and she said, "Thank you so much." So I do think, those are things that happen to me like almost every week. Something like that happens, and it's gotten so routine. Like I can kind of tell if someone. We have a rule at the mission, and you can check with Jacques. If someone has a red candle, you don't ask them how their day is. You don't start. You just say, "Thank you for coming," because when you do that, you might be intersecting something very painful for someone.
Yeah.
But it's the children that really get me, the kids with cancer. And, I had a donor who told me, "You don't know this, but my sister came to the mission every day to light a candle while she had pancreatic cancer. And she would see you and you would stop her and say hello. But you didn't know she was my sister because we had different names." And I said, "I did? Well, I'm glad I did."
I'm so glad I was nice.
I'm so glad I wasn't asking her for extra money. No, and she said, "But she just passed away, and I wanted to thank you for the kindness that your place showed her." I think that a lot of people don't go to church anymore. I don't go every weekend. I go often, and we're busy lives. And so I think for some people, the mission can be like their church, even if it isn't their church. Tony Forster, who was the president of the Historical Society forever, and my old neighbor in town, Santa Claus, told me, "My church is the great outdoors." His family owned the mission, coincidentally, from 1840s to the 1860s. But, so I think we have to look at it too. Anybody that walks across those grounds is not just buying an admission ticket. They're bringing their soul to the place. And that soul might need a little, sprucing up. It might need a little help, might need a little engagement, a little kindness. It's all right.
Yeah.
I think we all need that.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes without saying that you're a great steward for that space, and even if it wasn't something that you immediately knew was your calling, it found you for a reason. And I think that's it's been really great to get to know you and kind of learn more about how the mission works and what you've been able to do for it over the 23 years under your tutelage. Now that I was there last week. It's beautiful. It seems like the job's done, right? So you can just go home.
Job's not done. We actually have a big list.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, mission. Good job.
Again
Good
and
job.
again, every 3 years, you guys know this. You have to reinvent yourself every 3 years, right? Every 1,000 days it takes to move a mountain. That's kind of my philosophy.
By the way, 2026 for us is the year of no haircuts.
Oh,
Reinvention.
I know, but
Reinventing
did you get
ourselves.
Sexiest Beard Award or something?
He was the
Rumor
runner. He was
has
the
it.
runner-up. He was first runner-up
my
in
research.
America's sexiest beard.
This is something new.
Jim Taylor did tell me from of the Fiesta Association that I should go out for the world's hairiest man or whatever.
Oh, yeah. You should. I know,
you get but then you got to go clean shaven on day one. I don't want to go clean shaven.
No, I get that.
Anyways, what are the big things that you were looking forward to as you look down the roadmap of what is left to do?
Oh, gosh. So we just got off the presses. I've been working on it for 2 years. It cost us $100,000. It's our preservation strategy for the next 30 years. And it's every project outlined for 1 year, 3 years, 7 years, and 10 years.
Whoa.
And The board's endorsed it, and it will be, when I retire eventually, the thing that keeps the mission fund, where the money goes, where it's going to be directed, and what is going to keep this place going for another 100 years.
Wow.
Is retirement coming soon for you?
No.
Or?
I
Okay.
have a 14-year-old, so I got to go
Okay.
to college.
All
So
right.
it's not- But that was one of the things I wanted to leave it. I did the city's preservation strategy for it in about 2000, and we had 21 sites and structures in the city of San Juan to figure out a plan for. City's changed drastically on its commitment to preservation and stewardship, but back then the council wanted to understand its capital improvement projects, how they would impact known artifacts or known assets in the community. And so that was a good training ground for me.
Yeah.
So the preservation strategy is big. The other thing that's really cool that we're doing is November 1st is our anniversary date. And we're going to be having the story of faith and time is the story of the mission projected on the ruins walls. Its debut will be November 1st. The script took us about 9 months to write. I had a co-writer. And then we ran it by our Indigenous community leadership to read it, make sure they felt good about it. Ran it by our Catholic community. I've had to vet it a lot to make sure that it's really beautiful and meaningful and not boring.
When you mean projected, is it like...
It's digital mapping.
Okay.
So it's like a movie projected onto the ruins, and it's all fits into the nooks and
Is it a lot of
crannies.
historical, cool historical content, or how does the story go?
It is an overview of history. There's an example of it by the Alamo in downtown in Texas, which I've seen several times, but ours is going to be better because they put a lot of faces on it and you don't know who the people are. Ours is set to music and a little bit of a narration, a story that unfolds that really talks about the testament of time and how we appreciate the mission and how it got to where it is today. It'll be about a 13-minute show, and it'll debut on November 1st to a select audience because it'll be a nighttime. Daylight savings time that night is like 5:05, and so it's going to go off at 5:05. And then it will play regularly as part of our Christmas a month, December program, Capistrano Lights. So Capistrano Lights, the tree goes off at 5:05 with all the other programming that we have. And then at 6:05, the Legend of Time will come, and Story of Faith will go off at 6:05. And that'll be another programmatic evergreen experience for our guests. I won't have, when we do a live event, I have to count on artists to be there and musicians and production, sound and weather. It's very costly, and we do that.
Yeah, projection mapping isn't cheap to set up for sure.
No, it's not. And we had
It's very
lot
precise.
of fundraising for it. Raised lots of money to do the script. Now we're right now doing the digital mapping process. And we have the score and the music and the licenses to get all of that.
Yeah, so
I have a
cool.
company I'm working with. And so that'll debut the first, and then it will be forever. Like that'll always go with Capital Lights and that investment. And it'll be with one of these. We bought a really fancy high-res projector that we own because it's cheaper for us to own it over amortization than to rent
If you're
it.
planning to keep it like for multiple times a year, that app makes
It was
absolute sense.
$56,000. But we fundraised for that, knowing that in the long run it'll be cheaper. And we also use it at the gala. So and then I just signed with Sutton Foster, who is a Broadway star, Tony Award winning. She's dating Hugh Jackman. She's our artist for our gala.
Very
We're
cool.
very excited to have her
Yeah.
and a whole host of artists at the gala this year that will be real exciting for people to see throughout the night. A lot of surprises up our sleeves. And then, of course, I'm working with a community kind of hybrid group of the chamber and restaurants in the area and a board member, Trevor from Trevor's at the Tracks, to bring back a food and wine festival at the Mission.
Yeah, it's
They're
exciting.
doing all the boots
That'll
to the
be really
ground
cool.
hard work. I'm protecting the asset and being a voice
Yep.
for the Mission to make sure that we don't get obfuscated by their plans. So in the past, I started the Vintage in '96 with the Chamber of Commerce years ago, and it was an opportunity for the Chamber to be a fundraiser locally, and it was great. But over time, it started to devolve into something else. And with COVID coming on board and shutting everything down, we all took a time out from this experience because I don't want to have events at the Mission with the public coming on board that they don't know that they're at the Mission.
Sure.
It's really important to me. So it's got to be a partnership of this is the chamber and this is the restaurant committee and the Mission, and it's the Mission's birthday. Not we're just a backdrop for you to have fun.
You're more than an event space.
Right. In this particular setting, and I kind of tested the water with the State of the City event this last, I think it was October, November.
Which we both went. It was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the first time ever, and I was a little nervous about it, and they did a fantastic job, and the city was fantastic. The staff did a great job, and they actually committed resources and money to do it right, which was important to me, because a lot of times when you're a nonprofit, people call you up and say they want it for free, but it's not free for you to do
Sure.
anything.
Yeah.
You know, and so and we did underwrite as a venue sponsor. We didn't charge them, but when I say free, they did it right. You know, it had the right touch and the right temperament for a civic event. Nobody wants to feel their taxpayer dollars are going to waste.
Yep.
They want them to feel meaningful.
Well, hey, it's I know we've had you on for quite a while today, and I really just want to say thank you again for coming in and joining us. This is a conversation that I've been looking forward to for a really long time, and I'm so appreciative that you came and shared an afternoon with us, and we got to learn a little bit more about who Mechelle Lawrence-Adams as the executive director of the mission really is, and kind of what motivates and drives you. And I just want to say thank you.
Oh my gosh, I'm thanking you for giving the chance to have therapy today.
Vocal
Appreciate
therapy.
sharing all this good stuff.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you're moving so fast you don't have time to get to know people as much as you want. So it's an opportunity to get to know what we're working with, right?
You got
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Thank you for the time. You guys do amazing work.
That's our
Still
pleasure.
love the newsletter cover that you guys did.
Thank you.
It was really
Yeah.
special. Really special.
All
I
right.
want to get it framed. All right. Well, thank you. Vaya con Dios. Viva la misión.
Viva la misión. I like it.
This couch, when I'm going back and looking at these, it's so hard to sit up.
Yeah, sit
that
upright.
I-
You look
especially
slouchy.
in this corner.
I know.
You're kind of like,
Yeah. You slouch back. Yeah, you get all,
because
you
I
get all
want to
the
actually
chins.
engage you. So I'm going to try sitting up.
Well, you guys let me know if I need to move or anything.
No, you're doing great.
Can you actually move here in front of me so I can sit up?
I usually do a shot of whiskey with my team before every gala, and
I love that ritual.
We do a quick prayer, we do a quick shot, and then I go and speak in front of 500 people, and we just pray to God that the train doesn't go by. Husband, who I'm married to now, and we had our wedding reception. It was called the Rendezvous, and every time the train came by, we made everybody stop and kiss.
That is
So-
a much better idea than making everyone stop and do a shot.
Well, yeah, it was really fun.